So, I'm going to try something different now. Instead of a movie I love, I'm going to talk about an album I love. When I was growing up, I began learning about nu metal bands, deathcore bands, and all of their kinds. A lot of internet reviewers would talk about how whiny and annoying they were, and they weren't wrong, but, well, I was a whiny, annoying kid. Even though I always tried to recognize critically acclaimed art from generally lambasted art, there would always be something that would keep me coming back. Then I finally listened to a Metallica album all the way through. This was the angry metal music that everyone loved, that I could listen to without guilt. As you might imagine, I prefer the pre-Black Album stuff, just like most people. Not to say I don't listen to Enter Sandman, King Nothing, The Memory Remains, Hardwired, and all those other songs too, but my three favorite albums are Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice for All. There are two main things I like about Metallica: their musicianship and their lyrical topics. Metallica do usually stick to a verse-chorus structure, but they aren't afraid to stretch their instrumentals out. Listening to them, you can really tell how good they are at making music. A lot of people talk about how nu metal bands would be very vague about what they were whining about. Metallica, on the other hand, definitely got very specific. What topics would they sing about? Well, today we're talking about Ride the Lightning. This album was released in July of 1984, nearly 35 years ago. It's hard to believe a band could rock that hard so far back. But without further ado, let's start off with the first track. Fight Fire with Fire definitely starts off on the right foot. It lets you know you're going to be in for a very intense ride. One reason I favor this over Kill 'Em All is because even though that album did have a lot of intense topics, musically it sounded more, for lack of better words, fun and happy. The music on Ride the Lightning, however, sounds very intense and serious. Now, as for the topic, Fight Fire with Fire paints a picture of the cycle of revenge and violence, eventually destroying the world. That's another thing. While some bands talked about revenge and violence, you could tell that they only cared about themselves and not about the greater good. Metallica tried to paint the picture of what the world was coming to without actually giving in to the dark side. Musically, it makes you want to headbang all the way down to your toes. Following a calm, peaceful sounding intro comes a nuclear blast raining down, which symbolizes a seemingly pleasant world suddenly stricken with war. Listening to James Hetfield's delivery, you feel like you want to scream along to the beat. Then, as the sound of a mushroom cloud lingers over the end, we beat right into the title track. Even before And Justice for All, you could say Metallica was always kind of a political band. Here they pretty much condemn the death sentence and show you the point of view of a criminal being executed. Right away, he acknowledges the fact that he is guilty of a crime, but at the same time, he is also having his life taken away from him. Here, you could say he's calling out the justice and prison system for justifying murder. Now that I analyze it, that is a good callback to the first song. Not only is the cycle of violence common against everyday citizens, it affects the people in power. Well, now that I've got that lyrical analysis out of the way... Hi, Cliff. It It's so important that all 4 musicians get the chance to shine in this album. The bass may be important for backing the rhythm, but when Cliff Burton can get so inventive with the sound of a bass, you've got to show respect. Once again, Metallica were first and foremost an anti-war band. For Whom the Bell Tolls, taking its name from Ernest Hemingway's novel, is explicitly about war. Moreover, the ignorance involved in war. Men who go to war have been convinced by their superiors that everything they do is for the right reason, so they follow orders without question. By the end, everyone dies and nobody cares. Everyone is just interested in their own survival without thinking about the ordeals of others. Crack of dawn, all is gone except the will to be. Now they see what will be, blinded eyes to see. What fuels the cycle of violence is the cycle of ignorance. When someone only cares about themselves and no one else, it produces a toxic defensiveness, which, if left unchecked, can lead to unfathomable war, which Metallica urges us to stop. By the way, I have to talk about that outro. The sound of the alternating tempos create a sense of insanity. As you listen to it, you can feel your inner demon screaming, trying to break free. It slowly fades to black. Oh yeah, you know it's coming. It feels unfair to rank these songs since they're all masterpieces in their own right, but I think Fade to Black is my favorite song from Ride the Lightning. The way it keeps building on itself musically, from clean and beautiful to full-on bombastic, all while remaining a completely depressing song. If you ask me, I think this could have worked as the final track. Imagine, the cycle of war themes so prevalent in this album has tortured the narrator so much that he feels there's nothing more he can do about it. So he may as well free himself from what the world has come to.
I have lost the will to live, simply nothing more to give. There is nothing more for me, need the end to set me free.
Before I forget, I have to acknowledge Kirk Hammett and Lars Ulrich. In the instrumental outro, while Hetfield and Burton carry the ball-inducing backing riff, Hammett blasts an amazingly intense solo symbolizing the horror and depression of dealing with your loved one's death, while Ulrich provides a rapid-fire supply of beats to make it even more potent. Now, whereas most of the songs provide layers of depth to their horror, Trapped Under Ice is rather simplistic. But sometimes you don't need depth to realize that something is truly horrific. Trapped Under Ice is pretty much the original one, a song about being dead and alive at the same time. The narrator of this song has awoken while cryogenically frozen and can slowly feel a freezing death creeping upon him. Despite that, I'd have to say this is one of the weaker tracks, and I think it's primarily because of the music. While Hetfield's delivery and rapid-fire shredding, as well as Hammett's piercing solos both match the intensity of the situation, the rest of it kind of sounds more victorious than soul-thrashing. And with that, we get into the song that pretty much everyone, including Hetfield, hates.
No need to hear things that they say. Life's for my own, to live my own way.
Escape is basically a song about being content with oneself while the rest of the world tries to beat you down. While it is a very positive sentiment to get behind, I don't think it belongs on an album like Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning's main goal is to make the listener feel a sense of hopelessness. Hopelessness to make them realize the current state of the world and that they need to do something about it. And when that's what you're feeling, self-empowerment does not come easy. Now, one song that does belong on this album. Creeping Death is usually the song that opens up Metallica's concerts. Just listen to that intro. The way all four instruments strike at the same time, building up to the sensational main rhythm. That's how you start a show. But the main reason it belongs in this album is because of the scale it rises to in the Cycle of War motif. Any fan of Metallica knows that James Hetfield is very adamant about religion. This song is a great example of why. It tells the story of God raining hell upon the Egyptians for enslaving the Hebrews. Again, fighting fire with fire. Metallica weren't just a band who wanted to rock out and had fans. They had something to say. They were gutsy enough to make a point about a higher power. If we're being controlled by an all-powerful force that punishes us with famine and disasters, then we should stand up for ourselves. There can be no peace without peace itself. Now, of course, one of the most admirable things about Metallica is how they would show off their musical skills, even going so far as to have full-on instrumental tracks, like Call of Cthulhu. Now, I will fully admit, I don't favor this over Orion or To Live Is To Die. Maybe because it seems to keep riding the same rhythm over and over again before reaching its climax. But one thing I like about it, and really this whole album, the mixing. Throughout the album, there has been a constant use of the reverb effect. By having everything echo, it feels like the sound is filling the atmosphere all around the earth and is wrapping us in a cold, monstrous storm, as the lightning comes for us, as it were. Also, the intro and outro with the clean chords and the bombastic finale work tremendously, symbolizing the terror of the unknown, which could have started the cycle of violence. When someone fears what they don't know, they seek to destroy that something to avoid their fate. But of course, all it really does is seal that someone's fate. So maybe, in a way, this is a good way to end the album. To leave us with the idea that rather than try to overpower what overpowers you, face that thing that should not be, head on, and be the best you can be. So, there you have it. Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Even if the sound of thrash metal isn't pleasant to your ears, which is completely understandable, this is not meant to be pleasant music, you should give it a listen. Because it's not angry music used to hurt people. It's angry music used to help people.